G'day! In today's video I'm going to do a bit of a build on the Antec CX200M RGB Elite black case. This is the black case in question, as we can see. Fairly plain. This one is a budget case, but it looks okay. We've got 5 ARGB fans in here. Well, they might just be RGB, controlled purely on the controller out here. Power, I'm assuming that's going to cycle through RGB colours, headphone jack, and 2 USB 3s, I hope, there. Anyway, we have 2 reverse spinning fans here, 1 fan here, and 2 up the top. We do get a bit of this fish tank kind of look. I'm going to leave the peel on here. And we do have a mesh at the front. Sadly, not on the side. So just a plain side of the case over there. We have mesh. Power supply is probably going to run to about here. And then we can potentially have a 3.5-inch drive there, maybe 2, possibly 2, and an SSD on top. During this build, if I come across anything interesting, I'll let you guys know what I find. But for now, I'm going to get into it. So I'm just taking the back cover off. As we can see, we have a single wire here going for LED control, which as predicted leads down to the front. And this here will be switching the colours. I find it weird that it is only connected to one. And make sure you've got a Molex connector to connect up your fans, because look at those power plugs. That's how they came from the factory. Whew. Just a few indeed. If we move down here, USB 3 header, HD audio, and assumably power LED. Hopefully you don't need to reset that PC anytime soon. Granted, you can just press and hold the power button. And look in here, we have enough room for 1 hard drive in here, and assumably 1 2.5-inch hard drive screwed to the top. So a slight bit of expandability there. I'm going to get a power supply in here and see how we go. The power supply installation was quite simple. Since this isn't right up to the very edge here, I could just slide that power supply in there with plenty of room. I do believe if I had these cables installed here, that it might be a little bit tricky. But as you can see, there is already one cable running just here. And that one had no drama getting around that, putting the power supply in. As you can see, the bit of a gap there. Does have a little bit of room to breathe, a little room to free there. I'm assuming most power supplies should be similar to this, unless you've got something like an 800 watt or 1000 watt power supply that's going to stick up to here. But right now, this 650 fitted perfectly fine with minimal drama, virtually no drama at all getting that in there. The little extras we get is really not much. A simple installation guide telling you how to remove the cover, how to put in the hard drives, how to remove the fans, and in here, just to be fairly standard attire as well. What have we got? One little bracket that I'm not too sure what we're needed for just yet. Some cable ties, that's all fairly standard there. A couple of back brackets, all fairly standard stuff. So I've gone to put in the motherboard, which in this particular instance is a B650M gaming Wi-Fi. We have 1 screw hole here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 down here. The factory fitted screw hole was right here. Where I need to screw it in is there, looking straight down. My focus wants to go. We cannot access that without removing the fan. Brilliant. So, looks like I'm taking out a fan just to put in that extra screw down here, and then I'll put the board in. Another thing that's handy is if you do need to actually get at the front I/O, this fan does pretty much need to come out to be able to get it, or you got to shuffle your board up and down to be able to actually get the cables on. So I'm going to be leaving that off for now, and then I'm going to hope the front panel header down there, I can somehow Houdini that on. Very unlikely. I'd say this fan's coming off as well. Yeah, due to size restraints, we have the front USB 3 header plugged in here. I cannot have that plugged in and have the fan installed at the same time. Luckily on this particular board, I've got another one up here, but you'd be kind of screwed if you're using it in this case. And I will have to take that out to get there. I can't quite get the angle right for the front, for the audio header. So, yeah, slight issue. If the fans could go all the way to the glass, maybe not. And so maybe they're symmetrical with here, with this fan here, but they're not. They're in it a little bit anyway. So hopefully a future revision they push it out here, and they discover how many boards use USB 3 headers down the bottom here, and there's not a bracket, like a 90-degree header bend to be able to plug it in. So I've just hit one major drama. Depending on where your 16 time slot is, this case will not support a 2.5 bay GPU. This one here, there's 1 bay, there's 2 bay. It needs to end here. If we're lined up with the fan, we have 1 spot, 2 spot, and then we're clipping the fan. So if you try and put in any large card, so any probably graphics card that is 330mm, or pretty much from here to here is 330mm. So if you've got a fairly large graphics card, you're going to be extremely limited on what you can fit, especially being it not supporting 2.5 drive or 2.5 slot graphics cards. Or you have to remove these fans, which is the only source of airflow going into the case, because we've got a glass front. So otherwise you're stuck with 1 fan, 2 fan, 3 fan, and the power supply fan here. So I'll just demonstrate what I'm talking about. So right now, I'm pushed right up against these fans. You see there's no gap there. But that GPU is not installed down there. I'll move it over. As you can see, we're not even close. There we go. That's it. Right up against the GPU, the fans and the GPU, and we're nowhere near the slot. So there's going to be no way, excuse my camera angle, there is no way there to install this graphics card on that board in this case without those fans. That sucks. So far, not looking good. I will try and substitute for the rest of the build, but damn. I was going to try this Asus 3060, which is a fairly small one, 3060 Aero I believe this model is. As you can see, since that cooler is sticking above the bracket, this also won't fit. So now I've got an RX 480 4GB model in there with the stock cooler on it. We install just fine down here. But if you look down here, look at that space. Can't even get my pinky finger in there. There is no room. That is blasting air directly into the GPU, which is great if you want to cool your GPU. But in reality, you're not really going to be fitting too many graphics cards that are decent power in there. So do be cautious of where your 16 time slot is for the board you buy for this case. Yeah, looking at the back here, I've just kind of loosely put it together, but there seems to be plenty of room. We have a decent finger gap between the back of the board and the back of the case, so you should just be able to cram it all in there. A couple of spots to cable tie it. It doesn't, where are we? I was about to say this almost looks like another spot for an NVMe drive, but no, I don't believe so. Looks to be no extra spot for a drive, not that I'm seeing. Anyway, I'm going to put the side panel on here. Because of the fans being so close to the graphics card, there's nowhere neat to run the cable for it. Maybe feed it up and two. No point having a front all-in-one cooler in there because there's nowhere to put it there. You might be able to get away with putting it up here, but it's going to be very tight, especially with the graphics card. It's going to be running here, and be sticking down to about here, and then your pipes are going to go whoop and curl all the way around to get there. So good luck fitting a 240mm radiator in here. You might be able to get away with a 120, but 240 is going to be extremely tight. Considering we already have the 2-slot graphics card restraint. especially with this, where most motherboards I see is this configuration, single PCI 1 slot and M.2 right beside it, followed by the 16 slot underneath it. It's pretty, I don't normally see the 16 times slot up the top nowadays, which means you're going to be limited to 2.5 inch drives. Or, sorry, 2 slot graphics cards that are less than 330mm long. Let's proceed. I'm going to put the panels back on and we'll fire it up. So I've accidentally put the power button and there we have fixed ARGB. My mistake. I thought this was going to cycle it. It merely turns it on by press and hold. No, we are fixed RGB, not ARGB, as I initially thought it might have been. Can you guys hear that? Can you hear that noise? That is the rear fan ticking. I didn't install that. That was factory installed. I haven't removed it. I don't know what it's clipping on to make that noise. But that is very underwhelming. I don't know if the cable's sticking through in here and it's just nicking it. Yeah, I'm not really finding anything that it can hit. Anyway, we have power, we have RGB on, RGB off. We'll just disconnect my lights. There we go, now we can see it in its glory. With our glowing graphics card down the bottom here. Side panel just sits in some grooves down here and it pushes up. Now that won't stay up by itself. It does require 2 screws. I know, there we go. Pull back, semi latches into there. Push, push forward. There we go. I'm pulling that and it's staying exactly where it's meant to be. As you can see, we have a budget case built to a budget with a couple of fatal flaws. The requirement of these fans that are already pre-installed, I would much rather if they only had 1 or 2 screws in there, being I had to remove both of them to be able to plug in the front I/O. Got a noisy rear fan. Not really making any difference there. The overall fatal flaw of the lack of large graphics cards that can be installed in this build, which is extremely underwhelming. The overall appearance that you get is good, is fine. I like it. It's cheap, and the appearance is neat. Fans down here spinning in reverse, so you can see the fans, and it's still passing air up. Feels like it's blowing a decent amount at the top here, but granted the fans are just there. That's going just fine. I can't quite tell how much air these fans are pushing, but putting my hand in there, there does seem to be a fair bit of turbulence going on. In theory is good. But at what cost? You can't exactly put a mid-range graphics card. I tried to put in a cheapish 3060 graphics card. That wouldn't go in. I think a 3050 is normally bigger than 2 slots. So that would be struggling to go in there. Overall, I'm struggling to really recommend someone for this computer, or this particular case. I was hoping it would cycle between 7 colors upon button pressing. Granted, I didn't research that well enough, so that's my fault. That is slightly underwhelming. Overall, for a cheap budget case, it's definitely got its fatal flaws. So I struggle to recommend it to anyone unless they're going for this particular look and they've well researched what graphics card they're using, what board they're using to actually fit it, and hope issues like that don't happen. So that's the build in the Antec CX200M. Hope this helps you, and hope if you do go down the path of buying it, that you can overlook its flaws, do a little bit more research and get the correct parts, and hopefully end up with a happy build. This one's going to be stripped out and moved into another case with the RX 7800 XT that I originally wanted to use that won't fit in this computer. That will do, and I'll see you later. Bye.